Morning, everybody. Welcome to the fourth day of Liminal. It's everyone flying in at the moment. Just while we wait, I'm going to do my usual because I love it. Tell me where you're coming in from. I'm going to shout out your name and where you're from. And see Maria, Carrie, Emily, Jen. Jen, I think you're in Bronte. Good morning. Hi, Krista. Liz from Sydney again. Hi. Come on, everyone flying in. Tell me where you're coming in from. South Africa. Yes, Themba. Awesome. Hi, Tammy. Nice to see you again. Natalie. Hi. So good. So we've been running this all week, and people are coming back every day, and it's nice to see everyone. Yeah, Jen from Bunty. There you are. I knew it. Awesome. Well, while everyone's flying in, I'm gonna do my quick spiel and then hand over to Kristi. So, welcome to the fourth day of Liminal. I'm Sophia. I help the fellowship program at StartMate. Liminal this week, it's here to give you a snapshot into a career in startups and hopefully give you an idea of how you then start to get in. As part of that, we would love to have to help Liminal attendees to actually land a startup job. I've been sending around the past couple of days, but I'd love to see more of you get on it. So we have a special Liminal job board, special application form that goes right to the founder. So get it filled in and let us help you find a job straight off of that. Again, if you love what you've seen this week, please do come join us on the fellowship, which kicks off late March. Applications are open at the moment. I'm running a session Friday lunchtime where you can ask me anything. We'll be super open. It's going to be a lot of fun. So come join me then. Couple of quick housekeeping bits. Session's going to be recorded. Questions to go into Slido. Now, Chrissy's got a presentation, and then we're going to have about 10 minutes at the end. So I'm just going to pop that in the chat, and again, share some love, LinkedIn, Twitter, or just reply to me on my email. It's so nice to hear what you thought of the sessions. So, super excited to introduce Kristi. She's part of the StartMate family as a mentor on our accelerator program. She's worked in leadership roles across pretty much every function: operations, product, sales, marketing, and most recently as global COO of WeWork. Kristi recently co-founded Kookaburra Foods, a startup creating the supply and product platform for the Australian plant-based food future. Super excited to have you here today, Kristi. I'm going to hand over to you. I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to get this presentation up here. I think that should be all good. Thank you for the introduction. And for those of you who may just be getting to know Sophia and StartMate, what a wonderful organization and really a great pathway for those of you who are thinking about potentially joining a startup or finding your way into the startup ecosystem. Welcome, and I'm so excited to have a conversation with you over the next 30 minutes about a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, which is change and growth. And I think the very fact that you're here this morning from places as far away as South Africa and as near as Sydney suggests that you are thinking very deeply about change, whether you're thinking about changing yourself, changing your career, or maybe even changing so that you can be closer to something that is purpose or mission driven for you. I know the one thing that is true about people who work in startups is that they believe they can change things. So it's a very exciting place to be. And what I'd like to kick off this conversation with is really getting you to think about the fact that if you want to change anything, you have to begin with the expectation that you have to be able to change your mind. And so much about creating forward progress is your mindset. So I want to spend some time with you over the next half an hour, sharing some frameworks that I have learned, some that I've developed over the course of my career, as I have gone through a lot of change myself in my life and professionally in my career, and things that I've really especially used with the staff and employees that I've been working with to help build and grow the companies that I've been a part of. So this morning, before we get into it, I thought what I would do is give you a little bit of my own background to help you get a sense for the kind of change that I've pursued and I've done over the course of my life. So this cornfield that you see here, That's actually where I grew up. That's the neighboring cornfield behind my house. I grew up in a very small rural agriculture community in Midwestern United States. It was a town of 750 people. But the next picture you probably recognize is New York City. And that's where I spent the last 20 years of my career. And it couldn't be a bigger change from where it was that I grew up. But the thing that I want you to really think about as you consider change and growth in your own life is that where you begin has no impact on where or limit you might go. I think you also can recognize that your identity is part of where you come from, and you'll take things from that. And I take a lot of the values that I had in a city as big as New York City. Incredible opportunities to turbocharge my career. Spent 20 years in venture-backed high-growth companies in New York City. And about a year ago, I had the opportunity to move here to beautiful Sydney, Australia. So a little bit about how I started in my career in pretty traditional career paths. I actually studied to become an accountant and then a lawyer. I worked at large multinational companies like KPMG, which is one of the world's largest accounting firms, and then a private equity firm, actually the world's largest private equity firm, Blackstone, and even a bit in politics in the United States Senate. Incredible learning places. I was able to spend my time there around really well-developed professionals and gain such great foundational skills. However, I found that they were a little bit too structured for me. What I really started to seek was more change, more opportunity for different learning experiences. And I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where to go, but I just knew I wanted something different. And I actually fell into GLG. For those of you who are here in Australia, you're probably familiar with Expert 360. GLG was the original expert network, and it was founded in 1998. I joined them in 2004. At the time, it was just a small company, but what it actually was the beginning of the startup ecosystem in New York City. So this is 2004. It was almost 20 years ago. And I spent 9 years there, grew the company from 40 employees to 2,000, had the opportunity to see expansion to 30 cities around the world. And as Sophia was saying in the beginning, this is when I left behind my highly structured professional work and started to become a startup professional. And that means that I got to work with software engineers for the first time. I became a product manager. I became a salesperson. I did partnerships. I eventually became a general manager and launched new digital markets and entered new markets around the world. It was a very exciting time. I think once you get exposed to a startup and you see the pace of change and opportunities that you have to evolve and grow, it's very hard to go back to those structured worlds. As the company got bigger, I found myself really wanting to be back in those small early days once again. That's why a place like StartMate holds such a special place in my heart in supporting these early stage companies. And I found a company in New York City called Flatiron School. We're doing something very novel, very unusual. They said, there's so much demand and need for people who have technical skills, people like software engineers or data scientists, that we believe we can train them faster and more effectively than going back to get a 3 or 4 year college degree, university degree. So we began the concept of a coding boot camp. This idea was we're going to train people in 3 months and teach them how to become a professional software engineer. Nobody believed it could be done. Nobody believed that you could change the system that existed at universities, but we did it. And when I joined the founders of that company, we had been teaching 30 students at a time. And by the time I left 6 years later, we'd sold the company into WeWork, we'd scaled it globally, and we had 3,000 students that we were teaching simultaneously and putting 5,000 people into new careers in the world. That kind of change that you can have on people's lives, on your own career, and on the broader community is the kind of thing that you have access to do at a startup. So I'm excited you're here today thinking about how to transition be a part of a startup. But I want to pause for a second and say, why change, bro? When I think about it, I hope by sharing that story about my career journey, that you saw I pursued a lot of change. And I've always done it because I feel like when I'm changing and I'm evolving, I'm learning. And when I'm learning, I'm growing, and it makes me feel alive. And I imagine when you've had these experiences throughout your career, you feel that way as well. More and more of it that we do, the more of it that we want. But there's something that's happening as a force around us that's pushing people to change more rapidly. The World Economic Forum has done a study of economies around the world, and we can see that they're transforming very rapidly. When you think about going from agrarian to an industrialization, we're going through a transformation that's just as big. And so the kinds of changes that we need to push ourselves through to continue to be relevant and to have an incredible career means that we have to be learning all the time. In fact, they went so far to say that in the past century, if you were illiterate, you would be kept out of a lot of opportunities. We all know that. But as we look forward to the next century, what we have to think about is, are we someone that can change ourselves, that can learn new things, that can unlearn the things that we knew from the past, and can relearn, evolve ourselves, and continue to be a part of changing and building the future? This is who we need to make ourselves into. If you think about this old economy, think about factories, think about car manufacturing. You could learn something one time, memorize it, and then do that same thing over and over again. It was safe, it was predictable, but it was also boring, right? The new economy works very differently. And when you start thinking about the kinds of jobs, especially in the startup community, but are moving across our entire economy, you have to take that set of knowledge that you've learned, functional skills that you've gained. That's why my startup experience was so valuable in gaining skills across all those functional areas of a business. But then you have to apply a particular mindset, a mindset that allows you to continuously change and evolve yourself. This mindset is one that enables change. If you think about your own curiosity and you find a way to connect to it, this is the fuel to light up your desire to learn. And so always pay attention to your curiosity. Think about the things that you're reading, the shows that you're watching, the products that you want to tinker with. That's so important because that lights you up to get your engine moving. And think about the people around you, how you can connect to them, how you can express positivity and gratitude and have joy in the process of learning, because it takes a lot of fuel and a lot of energy to change yourself and to evolve. If you do it with purpose and collect feedback and reflect on what's working and what you feel good about, you will develop your own sense of personal agency, which allows you to continue to drive yourself forward in this process of change and evolution. As you go through this process of reflecting and pausing and thinking, you want to categorize the things that give you fuel. I like to call these driver emotions. These are the things that you feel when you wake up in the morning and you bounce out of bed and you've got 100 ideas and you can't wait to get started. You're happy, you're feeling good, you're confident, you've got a lot of energy, you're focused, you're maybe working with some other people that you like, that care about the same things, and you have a clarity of purpose. However, we also have these things, these feelings that drag us down. And these are the things where we don't want to get out of bed. It's hard to go to that meeting in the morning. And maybe we're frustrated and we're angry, or maybe we're actually a little bit afraid. Sophia and I were having a great conversation about how you can experience both of these things in the same day when you're doing something that you love. But the point is, when you're changing and you're evolving, you're actually pushing yourself through a whole series of emotions. And you just have to pay attention to these things. Use your feelings as a diagnostic tool to understand what you like, what you want to pursue, and what you need to change to continue to iterate and evolve yourself. Okay, so I'm going to ask you for a second to think about something and maybe pop it into the chat so we can take a look. As you think about what you want to change out into the future, the fact that you're here today and you're thinking about maybe a career change, what's a word that describes why you want to make that change? And Sophia, I can't actually see the chat. I don't know if you're seeing any words, if you can shout them out.
I can. Everybody put your curiosity from Grace, growth from
Absolutely.
Lee, hope That's a nice one from
Oh, I
Meg.
love that one.
Yeah, difference from Chris,
Yeah.
fear, freedom, challenge,
Oh,
evolution,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I keep
positive.
it going for a second. I'm going to give a
Yeah,
little.
yeah.
What you're hearing here is so sustainability, that's purpose driven. That's somebody who probably wants to change because you want to have more purpose and intention in your career. Oh, joy. We want to wake up in the morning and love what we're doing, right? You want to feel like the work you're doing matters, that it changes. Freedom. This is all about hope, right? This is about having knowledge that the work you do every day, you have hope about the future that you're building. It matters what you do. You take pride and joy in it. So this is fuel, right? This is fuel to actually drive the change. So stay connected to those ideas. All right, I want to shift gears for a second. I want you to look back and think about for a moment something that you've done in the past where you have successfully changed something. It took a bit of effort. It took some work on your part. Maybe it was challenging, maybe it was easy, but when you look back to change that you successfully made, what's one word that comes to mind when you think about that? Perspective. I love perspective because this is actually sort of the meta point of what I want you all to think about. So well done on sharing that point. When we head into change, it's by its very nature something we probably haven't ever done before. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to change. And so it's hard and it's difficult. And I really encourage you to connect back to changes that you've made in your past. Could be completely unrelated. It might be a change in a personal relationship, a change in academic field of study, and you're heading into a new career change. But think about that result and what happened, how hard it was, but how you felt when you came. Relief. Yes, relief. The perspective you have from having fought through that past change and how it felt when you came out on the other end, that perspective, feeling empowered and pride and elated. Remember that when you're fighting through the change that you're going through right now, that perspective is going to give you the resilience, the confidence, the energy, great words, that you need to actually go through that. So this little framework here is one of my favorite ones. And Sophia, I'll share this out with you afterwards. I had people in my company who used to keep this as their screensaver on their computer. So if there's anything you take away from this talk, it's maybe this particular slide. So think of not just building a project or a plan or a piece of software or a company or a building as something that we're creating. We're creating ourselves every day, right? And the journey of creating ourselves is long and it's emotional. And we go through a process. And in the beginning, maybe you said a few months ago, I'm going to join a startup and it's going to be exciting because I've heard all these cool people that are in the startup community. And you're like, that's a great idea. That's the best thing ever. That's going to solve all my problems. And this is going to be really fun. I like these people in the startup community. And then you start actually talking to companies and you realize that the work is very different. The pay is maybe not as good as the big company. And networking is not fun because you're not a salesperson. And then all of a sudden you realize what it's going to take to actually make a change. And you think, well, this is awful. I'm not cut out for this. I don't belong in a startup at all. And then you fall down into what I call the dark swamp of despair. Okay. Who's been down in the dark swamp of despair, right? Anybody who's ever tried to change anything in their life has been in the swamp of despair. So what we do when we get down there is we sort of put our head down, we're in the muck, we're like, nothing's ever gonna be better. It's awful. It will be better. It will. And the way that you do it is first you look up and look around and remember that you don't do anything great alone. You have family, you have friends, you have colleagues, you have neighbors, you have people in your community and your circle, and those people are important to you. So engage. When you're going through a process of change, engage with others around you, ask questions, talk about what they did, what it felt like. It'll normalize these feelings again. And you'll remember, oh yeah, that's right. It's hard when I'm trying to change. And then you start putting what you laugh a little. That's really important. Laughing is really important. You put one foot in front of the other. And gradually you're like, okay, it's still really hard, but I can do this. And then you get to the other end of this. And remember that feeling you had a few minutes ago, the pride, the confidence, the reflection, the perspective, when you made that change, you're like, you know what? This is the thing that I'm the most proud of. This is what I'm most excited about that I've ever done. The problem is when we look around at other people that have done great things, all we see is the little blue dot of this is the best idea ever. And wow, they accomplished something great. And we think it was really easy. It's not easy for anybody. It's hard for everybody. We all go through the swamp of despair, and we just need to do it together. Okay, one more quick framework. Sometimes we think about pushing ourselves into change. It shouldn't feel hard. And we all of a sudden hit this really tough obstacle. And we're like, something's wrong. That's actually the right thing. That's what we're actually trying to accomplish. We have to apply pressure to get ourselves into our stretch zone to be at peak performance. However, what ends up happening is that sometimes we can exhaust ourselves. So we have to think about, this is that point of pausing, reflecting, and iterating. Pay attention to how you're doing, pay attention to your feelings. If you're getting exhausted and you're feeling a little bit panicked, pull back, right? That's when you go talk to somebody. That's when you take a break. That's when you take a weekend off. And then sometimes you're back and you're bored again, right? You're in your comfort zone and you're bored. So you have to think about pushing yourself through these cycles to get yourself to that ideal position of change. It's a team sport. Don't try to change and grow alone. Push others to be the best that they can be. Support and encourage people when they get out there and overextended a little too far. There's a lot of ways you can push and support and encourage. All right, so I'll pause on this note and we'll open it up from some questions, but a few things for you to think about. Use your feelings as fuel. In the beginning of my career, nobody talked about feelings, right? It was about financials. But today, when you're changing and evolving, you have to pay attention to your fuels. They're an indication for what you want. They're an indication for what you need to change. Make sure that you realize you have so much agency in yourself to make the change, and be a part of supporting others in the process. It'll come back to you tenfold.
This, Kristi, this is just divine. Do you mind if I just switch off the screen sharing?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, there we go. Cool. Oh, so many good things. Alicia, who's one of the fellows in the last program, she just shot me a message. I'm going to call you Alicia, and she said the fellowship was her lifeboat out of the swamp. And I just think that point around like finding your tribe and finding your people when you're in and amongst that. I think that's particularly true in startups when like people are very real, like everyone, and also that swamp, it can be daily mini swamps.
Yeah,
like
I had a conversation with one of the executives on my team, and she said, you know, there are some times when I cycle through the swamp 3 times in a day.
Totally. Yeah, it's but it's fun. Like you can't have the highs without the lows, although that's probably not the healthiest thing to say.
You have to remember, and we were talking about before we kicked off today, that being a part of startups is equal part exhilarating and exhausting. But you don't get the exhilarating if you don't actually realize that the exhaustion is going to come. And so it's coming, but just know how to deal with it when it comes.
It's worth it. At a tactical level on the kind of daily swamps, can you just share some tactical things around like how you just keep yourself sane and level-headed despite the constant
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is really, it's diagnosis is important, right? You can't do anything if you're not aware of what's actually going on. So that's the first thing, is just pay attention to what's actually going on in your life and how you're feeling, which is sort of a funny thing to think about. Can you give me Sorry, we're making coffee in my kitchen this morning. So I think you start with diagnosis, start with recognizing that you have to, if you ignore what's going on, the problem's going to get worse. And sometimes you can't actually see it yourself. That's the reason why other people are so important. So have people that you talk to, you know, process it yourself, but also engage with other people. And you'll have more and more opportunity to engage with other people if you're also trying to help them, right? That's why it's reciprocal. And when you develop those relationships, sometimes other people can help you see what's going on far more effectively than you can yourself.
Amazing. All right, I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 questions. Anonymous, how can we best support someone, for example, our partner, when they're in the swamp?
You know, my partner is actually really important to me in the process. I think it's important to recognize we're not here to come up with the solution. And it's easy to want to be the solution maker. But what we really need to be is a listener. And in software engineering and computer science programs, there's a concept called rubber ducking. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but at MIT, we keep this is my phone, but we keep a rubber duck on your desk. And the reason for that is part of the process in training computer scientists is articulate the problem out loud to the rubber duck before you can go to your professor to ask the question. Because in doing that, 80% of the time, you'll actually get the answer to your question and not have to go get the answer from a professor. So what that's really about is verbalizing, right? It's articulating what's going on. So I think the most important thing as a partner to someone in the process, just listen. And sometimes you can see that somebody's not feeling quite themselves. They're a little bit out of sorts, and they might just need to process what's actually going on.
And then one from Nina. What are some of the most important things you learned when scaling up organizations from a smaller startup?
Oh, there's so much.
A whole other talk.
Yeah, they actually have a couple talks on this. I think there's a couple things. Talking and communicating is really, really important because the change will happen so much faster than you can fix it. And so there's always something broken, always. And sometimes it feels like it's intentional, like somebody's not paying attention or somebody's taking something away from someone else. And so there's a lot of toxic negative emotions that can come into an organization that aren't necessary. And it's because of the pace of change and evolution that's taking place. So what's really important is maintaining a sense of trust and ongoing communication with a solution-oriented framework. How might we solve this problem rather than why is this broken? Right? And so that's a really important orientation and a culture to build into a high growth organization at all levels, from the junior level to the executive management, within the executive management team, at every level of the organization. People need to feel comfortable to raise their hand when something's off and the right pathways to be able to do it in a solution oriented fashion.
Love it. Yeah, just so many relevant things here. Can we squeeze in a little one? What is your advice to someone who has lost the burning desire and the passion?
Oh, thank you for this question. This is such an amazing question because the burning desire, that's your fuel, isn't it? And you have to feel connected to something before you can go. And the worst thing in life, I think, is feeling indifferent. And indifference is sort of the opposite of love, right? So how do you get back to it? I don't know is the short answer, but I think there are some things that you can do. And I think if you're feeling like you're lacking that desire, you're actually down in the swamp, right? I don't know which swamp it is, but you're in a swamp. And so you just have to know that you're in the swamp and you're not going to be there forever. You will find your passion, you will find your connection, you will find your love, but you can't put your head in the muck and just stay there. So some things that you might do: read, listen to podcasts, talk to people, ask people out for coffees. Think about what problems you care about. Do you care about there's a lot of problems we have today, it turns out. Do you care about the food system? Do you care about the climate crisis? Do you care about education? Do you care about social fabric and community? Immigration policy? There's so much, right? There's so many problems. Are you interested in, blockchain, cybersecurity? So much. Just think about something that you are interested in and start small. And when you find yourself reading more, listening more, connecting more, find your inspiration, your fuel will come back, and bit by bit, you can rebuild it. And that'll be your fire. Kindling, you're looking for kindling.
Kindling, just keep swimming.
Yeah, out of the swamp.
Kristi, thank you so much. Wish we could have you for a whole hour or more. But yeah, thank you so much. So many good things and just a lot of feels going on here. It's a lot of feeling warm and happy right now. But well, yeah, come to Breakfast Club. It's kicking off right now. I've posted the link. Some of you've probably already registered, but come chat, come meet the people that can help you with the kindling, with the finding out your passion. Like, don't be doing it alone. So yeah, come join us there. And Kristi, thanks once again. You're the best.
Good luck, everyone. Find your kindling.
Bye.